Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of live careers webinars powered by the Hertfordshire Opportunities portal. That is hopinto.co.uk. That's a website that has been built and designed for young people and students in Hertfordshire to share a range of careers information for you that we hope will help you to find out about future opportunities that will be very relevant for young people in Hertfordshire. So if you are not yet familiar with the HOP website, do encourage you to go and take a look at it there. We've got a number of social media handles as well that you might also be familiar with, so do go and take a look at that one. The purpose of these webinars is to provide you with the opportunity to hear from and interact with real life people who can share their experiences of a particular job or of a particular industry with you. So today's webinar is going to be all about careers in recruitment. So well done, first of all. So for those of you that are watching us live today, appreciate that possibly recruitment isn't something that many 15, 16, 17-year-olds would think about as a future career, but you will all come into contact with people within recruitment throughout your working life, and today you're actually going to hear about those experiences of those people in those recruitment positions. So you'll get a chance to hear about their careers in a moment. You'll also hear about some of the skills and the qualities that they possess and that they will need within their industry going forward. And it may very well be that you do go into recruitment roles because you will possess some of those skills and qualities that we need. So first of all, let me just give you a bit of housekeeping. So we can't see or hear any of you that are in the audience at the moment. So if you're watching this, you're either watching it live right now, which means that you'll have the opportunity to interact with us and ask some questions, and I'll tell you how you do that in a moment, or you may well be watching this back as a recording. So this session will be recorded. It will be made available via our YouTube channel on HOP, probably from tomorrow, which is Friday, and then it'll be available to watch back. So if you're watching this live now and you can't stay through the whole session, then you will be able to go back and watch it. Equally, if you watch it and you think it's been really useful and some of your friends or some of your family members, you think this might be a career that they would like to find out about more, you can share it with them so they can watch it as well. Just to reassure you, we can't see or hear any of you, but hopefully you can see and hear all of us. As I said, you will have the ability to ask questions of our panelists, who I'm going to introduce to you very shortly. So if you're thinking of any questions or things that you want to ask them, the way that you do that is on the dashboard that you should have in front of you, that you'll see there's one there called questions. So if you tap on the questions tab, that should open out a box where you can type in a question. So when you type that question in, it's visible only to me, so it won't be visible to the rest of the audience, and then I will signpost your question to, well, whichever one of our panelists you want to ask. So if you do want to ask anyone specifically, just put their name at the front of it, then I'll know it will go to them. Otherwise, I'll just probably ask it to all three of them for them to give their own opinions on. So let me introduce our panelists for you today. So we have three panelists from the world of recruitment. We've got Stephen Morley from Hayes Talent. We've got Caroline Deutsch from Select Appointments based in St Albans, and then we have Donna Murphy with us from Main Construction, who are based over in Galston, which is near Watford. So welcome to all three of you, and thanks for joining our panel today. So if I can ask you in turn just to tell the audience a little bit about you, so starting with Caroline.
Hi everyone, I'm Caroline and I run Select Appointments, which Gareth has said it's a recruitment consultancy. We're based in St Albans, and my first job was actually in recruitment. So I stayed in that for a while and then I moved into other things, but for the last 7 years been running my own business and love it. No day is the same.
Thank you, Caroline. Donna, same question to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Donna Murphy. I work at Main Contract Services and I'm the Client Engagement Manager within Rail and Infrastructure. We work across lots of different sectors: aerospace, automotive, motorsport, F1, defence, engineering and manufacturing. And like Caroline said, no day is the same.
Thank you very much. And Stephen, tell us a little bit about you.
So my name is Stephen Morley. I am a client manager for Hayes Talent Solutions, which is part of Hayes Group. My day-to-day job is to manage operations and client accounts, as well as our early careers function. I Fell into recruitment, as is so often the case. I worked as a holiday representative for 3 years after doing travel and tourism at college. So having worked in sales during that role, there's some real sort of crossovers there. And yeah, my journey into recruitment has now been sort of around about 8 years, 9 years.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. So we will hear more about all of your experiences and your journeys into your particular roles as we go on. So what I'd like to do now is, well, let's just cover what actually is recruitment. So Caroline, let me ask you that question. What do we mean when we say recruitment? And how does this differ from human resources, which might be a phrase that a few people here have heard of?
Sure. Well, recruitment's really sort of the start of the journey. HR can still cover recruitment, but it can tend to be more around, once somebody's employed and, what their career path can look like, whereas the recruitment element is sort of the beginning of that journey. But I mean, what we tend to say is that the main function of what we do, because we're an agency, is that we pretty much find people for jobs and jobs for people. So that puts it really simply as what we do. I mean, I would say some of the main functions around that are about building relationships as well. So, whether it's with the business or with the candidate, it's about just getting to understand what they're looking for. So that's a real core function of what we do. And then it's also about marketing our candidates to our clients. So this is again from an agency perspective. So, we're meeting lots of people who are looking for jobs every day. We're speaking to them on the phone. We then need to match them with the clients that we know and make sure we're getting the right fit. So it's about, just making sure that that's what we're delivering for both parties. And that comes through building those relationships, really.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, what is the function from your perspective, Stephen? Take us from sort of the start to the end of the process within recruitment.
So yeah, you've got about 6 stages to go through to when the candidate actually starts, or maybe even sort of 7 when you've got aftercare as well as part of that. You have your initial assessment and selection, so placing adverts, advertising, then assessment and selection, so placing adverts on job boards, looking for, it could also go the other way, whereas candidates are potentially looking for jobs. And yeah, you place adverts, you get buy-in from candidates through then speaking to them, understanding their sort of background, their experiences, and matching that to the role that you're looking to work on. You then have the assessment process. They'll go through interviews. Obviously, there's a lot of virtual interviews taking place now, or face-to-face as it used to be, which is the old school way. I think given everything that's happened now, a lot of that assessment and selection process is moving online. And there's some really cool technologies there. And then you've got the interview process. When you move through the interview process, you go through offer stage. You then have to go through compliance. So some businesses have specific compliance checks that you need to go through. And once you complete those compliance checks, you're at the latter part of the onboarding process. It's about setting up for your first day, and then when you are there, the initial sort of bedding into the role, and then checking in maybe 3-6 months after the position, just to make sure the role is right for them and what you've learned from there as part of that process. And within all of those parts, there's lots of nuances, and you've got temporary recruitment, permanent recruitment, for instance, early careers recruitment, and each of those different areas can operate in a different way.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, Donna, so just to clarify, really, you're acting as that middle person, that platform, really, between someone who's looking for a job and wants to go into a job and the company that are trying to recruit them. So presumably, a lot of this is around building really good personal relationships, isn't it, and enjoying working with people.
That's absolutely key. You'll spend an awful lot of your day either talking to clients or talking to candidates and trying to match them up really well. And the nosier you are, the better. The more questions you ask, the absolute better. I love to know everything about a job that a client wants filled, and likewise, I want to know everything about the candidates that I'm going to put forward for that job. So you're constantly speaking to people, constantly improving, getting better at what you do. The nosier you are, and I'm sure Caroline and Stephen would agree with me, the better things work, because the more information you have, you're better equipped.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very nice sort of segue into the next question, which is, what are the most enjoyable aspects of the job? So, Caroline, from you, what do you really enjoy about working in recruitment?
I think for me, it's about the fact that your day is what you make it. It's a little bit like running your own mini business when you work for a recruitment consultant, because what you do will generate what happens. So when you have made that call to a client and they say, yes, I've got a job for you, it's really exciting, because you can go in and have a chat with them and help them find someone to help drive their business forward. So you're adding that value. But also, when you get an offer through and you pick up the phone and call a candidate to say, guess what, you've got the job, that's just great too. And sometimes they even buy you gifts as well, so that's quite nice. And they come in with flowers and chocolates and stuff like that. So yeah, that's always really nice. But it's rewarding in many ways. No one day is the same. We've already said that, and it's certainly got a lot of variety, which is why I love it. Yeah,
sure. So it's really about that desire to want to help people, isn't it? And trying to come up with a solution to something is, I'm guessing from what you're saying, is where the satisfaction comes from. I mean, flip question to you, Stephen. What are the more challenging aspects of the role, or what are the things that maybe aren't so desirable?
Good question. You get out what you put into recruitment, and it can at times feel as if when you've got 20, 25 jobs, even up to 30 jobs landed on your desk to fill, the pressure to get and apply the need that each of those jobs has to be filled can be quite overwhelming. And I think one of the biggest skill sets in recruitment is time management, and your ability to manage your day effectively will have a huge bearing on then the efficiency that you have of working through the jobs to the required standard that they need. So a bit of hard work, a bit of patience, because things don't always go your way in recruitment. We were just talking before we came online about day one dropouts. You'll spend 3 months recruiting for a position, find the right candidate, and then the day before on the Sunday, you come in on the Monday morning and you've got an email saying I've found another role. So it's taking the rough of this move and just being able to bounce back when you could be a little bit tired after a busy week.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about that, being the worst case scenario, that you spend a lot of time recruiting someone to get them into a role, and then they either don't turn up on the first day, or maybe they last a couple of hours. But as you spend more time in recruitment, do you become a bit more hardened to that, or do you start perhaps recognizing that there might be signs as you go along that, well, I'm not quite sure whether this will work?
Absolutely. You definitely have to have sort of a sense of, let's say if a candidate drops out the day before, you've got to just reset, and you can't take it personally. It's your day job at the end of the day. You feel as if you build a relationship with candidates, particularly throughout a 12, sort of a 2 to 3 month recruitment period. You'll build a relationship with them, and then potentially if they let you down on that day, but sometimes we're dealing with people, and people live in a real world, and things change, and you've just got to sort of understand that. And you never know what goes around, what comes around. If they can't fill that role, maybe in 3 to 6 months' time, if you keep that relationship strong and you end on good terms, there could have been a genuine reason, and then in 6 months' time you could place them in another role. So yeah, taking the rough with this move.
I mean, Caroline, is that the biggest frustration or the biggest worry for you, that you're going to invest a lot of time getting someone into a position and then perhaps it doesn't happen right at the last minute?
It does happen, and it will continue to happen. So I think it's sort of almost part of the territory, and you do have to be hardened to it. But I'm sure we all know that there are ways that we manage that to the best of our ability. And I think as long as you've done that, and you've given your best, and you've got a good solid relationship with your clients, so if you do have to then say to them, do you know what, this has happened, then you work through it together. So it's never going to go away. We sometimes say, oh, they've gone off to the island. We have a name for it, because they would suddenly disappear. And people will do that. You can't, it's a bit like you cannot always control exactly what somebody's going to do. So you have to sort of accept and manage. But like I said, if you're doing everything you possibly can to keep the relationship going, and with what Stephen said about what goes around comes around, definitely never close a door, and always be professional.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, let's just move the conversation on a little bit, and let's think about some of the skills and qualities and possibly qualifications that someone might need if they wanted to go into recruitment. So, first question, Donna, I'm going to ask you is, which subject should someone be doing at school if they think recruitment is a career for them?
Well, look, I think, you know, the basics, English and maths, you'd be surprised, we do use maths a lot actually in recruitment. So that's really important. That's really, really key. So I would definitely say look at getting those done. We've had sort of various people come in with degrees. We've got 2 graduates at the moment who've got law degrees, and I think, Stephen, you've mentioned before that psychology was something that you've noticed as well. A lot of what we do is dealing with people on a day-to-day basis. So I guess that's where the psychology would come in.
Yeah, Stephen, anything to add to that around any particular subjects?
Well, I did drama at school, and that certainly stood me in good stead at certain points throughout my recruitment career. Well, funny enough, I did travel and tourism, so I always wanted to be a holiday rep, which it seems strange to a lot of people, but that was what I wanted to do when I was younger. And yeah, I had a real particular interest in drama, and that really helped me sort of be a bit of an extrovert, be comfortable with my sort of talking to people and so on and so forth. But I really think maths, you know, particularly on the temporary recruitment side, you're dealing with different rates of pay. You've then got to take percentages, margins. Recruitment firms charge a margin on top of what would potentially be an hourly rate, and being able to think on the spot when you're speaking to a candidate who wants to know what the charge and the pay rate will be for them. Knowing those sort of quick maths and being able to use a calculator quickly either in your mind or on your phone, or if you have a physical calculator, is really quite important. And yeah, particularly when you speak to a client, again, they might want you to sort of tell them exactly how much they're going to be charged, and to have that knowledge there and then really stands you in good stead.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds from what you're saying there, it's very much around those functional skills. It's not thinking about having really advanced knowledge of English or maths. It's at that GCSE level. Caroline, if perhaps subjects aren't the be all and end all for someone successfully working in recruitment, is it more about the skills and qualities that someone would have that they could bring to an organisation? And if so, what sort of skills and qualities would people have?
Yeah, so you know, it's getting a good combination really, but the skills and qualities that I would look for: super organised, able to multitask, IT literate. Also, you know, good sort of writing skills and communication skills, because, you know, you might be writing a job advertisement, you know, you want to market your job to a candidate to, you know, let them know, you know, this sounds really interesting, and the same with your clients. So the communication skills are very important. But I think sort of a layer down to that is also looking for people who are curious. I mean, we've mentioned nosy, absolutely. You know, ask lots of questions. You need to be persuasive as well, and you need to be able to negotiate. So those are things which maybe, you know, are sort of slightly sort of outside of the sort of the normal communication organisation things. And also, I've said resilience and listening skills. So yeah, those are some of the other things that I definitely look for.
Sure. And then, Donna, anything that you'd add to that around the sorts of skills or qualities that you feel that you have to demonstrate on a very regular basis in your role?
I think you have to enjoy talking to people and dealing with people. I think if you don't enjoy doing that, this probably isn't going to be a career that you should go into, because you spend your day talking to clients, candidates, colleagues, and that's a large majority of what your working week and your working day is going to look like. So you really have to like people and like dealing with people.
Okay. And I'm guessing a fair amount of determination, resilience, and perseverance, because I guess you don't always get the ideal candidate's details dropping into your inbox straight away, do you, Stephen?
No, you've definitely got to be curious and figure out new ways of, or, you know, sort of, yeah, new ways of finding the right candidates for the right jobs. And it comes about, you know, being ambitious just generally within your day job, looking to find the right candidates, taking on those extra jobs on your desk to really push yourself. But there's recruitment, your career can go from associate level through to managerial level within sort of 3 to 4 years if you apply yourself and you are ambitious and you work for a business that matches those needs and allows you those opportunities. So it's right to have it's good to have the right ambition, but it's also to be curious to make sure you're working for the right company, recruitment company that can provide you with those opportunities to develop.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think sometimes recruitment's had a bit of a bad name in the past, that there's perhaps a perception that recruitment is something that's very sales and commission orientated. And as an industry, is that something that you're trying to move away from, Caroline? Was it fair, or is there an element to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it does sometimes get a bad rap. Yes, if you work for an agency, you are normally set targets. But I think, again, it's how you approach that in terms of it's quality over quantity. And if you're working for a reputable business, that's how they would want to operate, rather than just saying, oh, you've got to hit this number. It's got to be about being right for everybody. So, that's really important when you're considering about who you want to go and work for, I would say. I don't know whether there'll be a shift away from targets. I think it would make sense in a way, but if you've got that drive, sometimes people do enjoy that. They enjoy that way of being able to be incentivized.
Yeah, okay. Before we move away onto the sort of next section of questions, just wanted to ask about university. I mean, as far as I know, there's no degrees specifically in recruitment, and there'll be people watching this one who, they're interested in recruitment, but they really want to go to university as well. Are there any degree programs that you think would really lend themselves to someone who is considering a career in recruitment? We spoke about psychology a little bit earlier, but I mean, anything else, Stephen, that you can think of that perhaps any of your colleagues might typically have done?
I mean, recruitment is part of HR, and there are lots of HR type courses and qualifications that you can do, be it at college or at university. Often, I know we're sort of looking at recruitment at an agency sort of perspective. You have, probably about 30, maybe even 40% of people that work in recruitment work as part of internal recruitment teams for businesses. I will often go into those businesses as a way into sort of a quick way in to use their HR qualifications, because there is recruitment, particularly in a company where it's not target driven by sales, it's target driven by stakeholder satisfaction within the business, so filling jobs and filling a certain amount of jobs by a certain amount of time, but building relationships internally within the business. It's a real good way into potentially a long-term career within HR. You can develop into potentially a HR coordinator, move across into a HR coordinator role, and then work your way up to maybe advisor / HR business partner. So often people who have a particular interest in HR will use recruitment as a way in, be it maybe the actual recruitment side or recruitment coordinator when you're working on or a recruitment compliance partner, where you're just doing the compliance side of the recruitment function. So you do have the sales, and that's potentially where the bad rap might have come from over the years. But there's far more to recruitment in terms of internal recruitment teams, and also businesses like Hays Talent Solutions who go into businesses and sort of take on their recruitment function, where there's lots of very different roles within recruitment itself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, gonna move on, and let's just look into the prospects for recruitment. I am going to ask, for those of you that are watching in the audience live at the moment, do keep putting your questions in, because in a moment I'm going to be referring to you to ask some questions of our panelists. So anything that you've heard at the moment that you'd like to know a little bit more about, or perhaps anything you haven't heard so far but you'd still like to know about, please submit your question. If you can't think of any questions but you're having thoughts about recruitment at the moment, just pop your thoughts into those question box at the moment. So if perhaps this is something you're thinking about, or there's it's a career that maybe you're interested in and you want to share why it's a career that you're interested in, do put those in there. So you will be kept anonymous. We're not going to reveal or say your names as I read those ones out. But just thinking back to the prospects for recruitment at the moment, is it a fairly safe industry to go into, Donna? Do we think that there's always going to be a need for recruitment consultants?
Personally, I think there always will be a need, because I think a recruitment consultant, I know a lot of companies want to sort of go to digitalizing it and algorithms and searching words and CVs, but I think there'll always be a place for recruitment, because I think there's always that place for the personal touch, and I don't think a computer can find the right types of candidates as well as a person can. I think it's definitely getting busier at the moment. Obviously, we have the reality of COVID and what happened last year. Certainly from our side, we do an academy, and we probably do this about 4 times a year. We haven't done one now in about a year because of COVID, but we're now starting to do that again. So we're looking to take in people into a 6-week academy, trainees, anything up to sort of 10 and 12 at a time. Realistically, we're probably only going to do 2 this year, but we envisage that growing, and I do think it's a growth industry. I think it may depend on the section that you work in, and certainly for us, there's some sectors are busier than others, and rail and infrastructure at the moment is hugely busy. We've got HS2, and we've got Crossrail, and eventually the airports will come back online, and they will be doing the expansions. It's all there and it's all happening. Hundreds of jobs need hundreds of candidates, need recruitment consultants to fill those jobs.
Good horse. Okay, no, thank you. That answers that question really well. Caroline, just from a Hertfordshire perspective, is Hertfordshire a good place to get a job in recruitment?
Yes, definitely. I mean, look, there are quite a number of recruitment consultancies out there, but I think the fact that within Hertfordshire, you've got a really interesting mixture of types of businesses, from big corporates right through to SMEs, small, medium-sized businesses, to startups as well, and also quite a lot that are in tech and, you know, online, and all of those sectors that we have seen have continued to grow even though we've had the pandemic. So yeah, recruitment is definitely getting back on track. You know, things are picking up. There are plenty of opportunities, whether you want to work in-house, for an agency, and yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity to sort of find out more. I mean, the actual industry itself, it's worth about £35 billion, so yeah, plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Steve, it'd be a little bit unfair asking you this next question, because people have probably detected your slightly Northern Midlands accent here. I think there's always a perception, particularly for people working in Hertfordshire or living in Hertfordshire, that they've got to go into London to get the big money.
Yeah.
Is that something that's true of the recruitment industry?
I think it's true with any industry. If you were to work in London, the living costs are higher. So naturally, when living costs are higher in any city around the world, you'll receive higher pay, because the cost of living in Sydney, in Paris and London is considerably more. So you're rewarded for that. If you were to travel from the Midlands to London and from Leicester, you'd have to pay around about £67,000 per year, well, even more than that now, on a season ticket on the train. So it's all comparative. Yes, if you go to London and you work in London, you'll probably be paid a higher amount for the same job as compared to someone in the Midlands. But your lunch is going to cost more, your train ticket is going to cost more. You need to use the underground to get to pretty much anywhere in London. So yeah, I think naturally that there's a lot of people. 5-10 years ago, London was the place to be for most jobs, really. Everyone wanted to work there. I think now, with a shift, particularly with everything that's happened with the pandemic, there's a lot of people looking to move out of the city. And as part of that, that's slightly driving up then some of the salaries that are dotted around, particularly just on the adjacent to the M25. Some of the salaries are being pushed up in that area. But yeah, live in London, you'll be paid more, but say if you want to go get a sandwich every day, it's going to cost you pretty much twice as much as it would do in Leicester. So swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, we're going to hand over to questions now from the audience. So we've had a couple that have come in, so do keep them coming. There's not many of you in the live audience today, so if you ask a question, it'll almost certainly be pitched towards our panel at the moment. So just to open up the questions tab on your dashboard, then a text box will appear, and then you can type your question in there, and then we will direct it to the relevant panelist, or indeed all 3 of them. So the question that's come in here, I'm going to ask Caroline this question, but I imagine you'll all all be able to answer this one. How difficult is it, or how hard is it, to tell someone that they haven't got a job?
That's a really good question. And yes, look, it's never going to be easy because you're giving them some disappointing news. But what we will always do is get constructive feedback from the employer. So it's how you deliver that. So rather than just saying, oh, you didn't get the job, it could be, actually, do you know what, it's because they're looking for somebody who's got a little bit more experience, or whatever the reason might be. And then always try and follow that up with something positive, something that might help, some good advice. Let's look at your CV again together, let's maybe do some more interview practice. So you're acting in an encouraging way, because it's a big decision that you're making, and you put yourself out there to go on an interview. So no one really likes to hear bad news, and it's not one of the nice bits of the role, but you can turn it into something constructive.
Yeah, and Stephen, I guess this is one of the skills of the role as well, isn't it? Because although Caroline says you want to try and get positive, constructive feedback from the person who's interviewed them, I guess sometimes they might be fairly blunt, and then you've got to try and dress that up to speak to the candidate. So can you think of any examples where you've been given some perhaps really blunt and actually quite negative feedback about a candidate that you then had to try and dress up for them and present more positively?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the role, particularly sometimes you have lower skill type roles, you tend to have a lot of candidates going through that process. So sometimes it's easy to fall into a process of giving the bare minimum. But I think for each candidate, you're going on a journey with them. So it's about approaching that by saying, we've been unsuccessful as part of this. And it's going to be a learning process for you, because sometimes if a candidate's going in for a job and they haven't got that, maybe as a recruiter, you could have done more to prepare them for the interview. You may have not provided some of the correct information that you could have. So it's not only sort of looking at the feedback for just the candidate, but also yourself and how you can better prepare other candidates in the future. But I think really looking at it as a journey that you're both going on together helps whatever feedback you land with your candidates. Some will turn around and say, thanks, but no thanks, Steve, you're rubbish, see you later. It happens, and you just got to sort of brush that off and move on to the next.
Yeah, and then Donna, the flip side of that one, then it's being able to tell someone that they have got a job. And have you got any particular experiences or memories that come to mind where you've told someone they've got a job and they've perhaps been a little less overwhelmed than you thought they might have been?
I've had that a couple of times where I've made the call and told them they've got the job and it's fantastic. And probably more early on in my career, I felt that I was more invested and I was more excited than they were. And I guess people just take some news in different ways. And for me, my favourite calls are the ones that where you've got the job and it's absolutely life-changing for them, and that is absolutely fantastic. And especially through the past year where people have been out of work because of the pandemic, and we're starting to get them back into permanent roles now, and it's some of them have said it's nothing short of life-changing, and they can pay their mortgage and still do all the things that they want to be doing. But I've had some candidates who were pretty underwhelmed when I thought, and I felt more excited than they did. You kind of have to rein it in and read your candidate.
Yeah, okay. Another question that's come in here. I think, Stephen, you touched on perhaps the number of people in recruitment who work for a company or work for an agency, but the question is quite simply, is it better to work in recruitment for a company or to work for an agency?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends what your goals are. Some people go into recruitment because they're aware of the potential financial upside. You can make good commission within recruitment if you're if you're good at what you're doing, if you're sort of just approaching it from a point of view as trying it out as a career. Again, also you can make fairly good money there quite quickly. But it really does depend on your goals and what you're looking for, and working internally for a business, and being driven by positive feedback and good customer service and the ability to develop within your role. For me, was probably my biggest driver when I got into recruitment. I really found that working on behalf of the business, maybe turning that around and taking a fill rate from 50% up to 95 to 100%, and therefore, sort of turning that type of relationship around for me was what I found most rewarding, and that's the reason I'm probably still in recruitment today.
Yeah. Okay. What about for you, Caroline? What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about recruitment and not quite sure the best route, whether it's to go and work internally or through an agency?
I think because I've always worked sort of in agency situations rather than sort of an in-house role, and I think probably from my point of view, it's the variety that you get from working across different types of businesses. When and if you like that variety, then that's probably going to appeal. And being driven by the sales side too, if that's more appealing, then yes, definitely. But also it suited my sort of more entrepreneurial way of working, I suppose, because you are sort of running your own little mini business, so you're really driving that forward and you can see the results and you're managing your finance and you're doing your marketing and all of those sorts of things. I think both are really strong ways to start within recruitment, and you might find you start one and you don't like it and you might want to switch to the other, but generally speaking it's just about that variety, really.
Okay, and then also there's a really pertinent question here, but if I'm just leaving school with A levels, am I likely to get a job in recruitment, or will they be looking for someone more experienced? Donna, I'll give you first crack at that one.
Absolutely, you'd be given a job in recruitment. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we do an academy, and that is for people leaving school or college who maybe don't want to go down the university route. And there's qualifications in-house that you can do, Cert RP, things like that. So you do gain qualifications towards a HR qualification. So that's all possible. As both Caroline and Stephen have said, it is a hugely rewarding career, and it really, really is. I've only been doing it for 5 years, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And if you work hard and put the effort in, you are rewarded, and you're rewarded on a personal level, but also there's a financial reward at the end of every single placement that you do. You personally, along with the company, reap the benefits of that, and it's a huge sense of satisfaction.
Good. Okay. It's pretty interesting, the question that's come in here, which I don't know the answer to. So Caroline, I hope you can answer this one. Is headhunting part of recruitment, and is that something you do? So do you want to explain what headhunting is, first of all?
Yeah, so headhunting is usually when you're approaching somebody who we'd call a passive candidate. So they may not even know that they're looking for a new job, but it might be a company who said, we want somebody to come to us from this particular business, and we'll go out and speak to them and start that conversation. So they're not necessarily going to find them on a job board. You're not necessarily going to know that they're actively looking for a new role, and you tend to hear headhunting when it's a more sort of senior type of position or role. So it could be, a business is deciding they're going to take on a new MD, they want it from their key competitor, they hire a headhunter who can go and have that conversation, be almost the person that's sort of the broker to do that deal for them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you do much headhunting, Stephen? Is that sort of part of the role for you?
Not necessarily my part of my role now. I sort of manage a few clients and operationally sort of work across those, and particularly with an early careers side. We tend to do sort of more entry level type positions. I have had to do some senior recruitment over the years, and I was approaching that very much as an internal sort of on an internal basis. I think LinkedIn has pretty much revolutionized the way you would do headhunting as an approach. Pretty much every MD or pretty much anyone now is on LinkedIn and has a profile. So your ability to map and market map your competitors and be in touch with those people that potentially you might need to headhunt is a hell of a lot easier than it was 5 or 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where you had to be a well-connected recruiter to probably be successful in that area. So the term headhunting, in a day job, people would do it, but I think that sort of term, I'm sure maybe Caroline and Donna hopefully would agree, that's sort of, we've shifted away from that now, and it's very much if you're recruiting right at the top or at the bottom. Filling a entry-level customer service role could be just as difficult as filling a senior exec because you've just got different challenges for both sets of recruitment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, thank you. Well answered. No, but you spoke about LinkedIn there, Stephen. So, I mean, Donna, you've said you've only been in recruitment for 5 years. So you may not have the same level of experiences and knowledge as Caroline and Stephen have got. But how much of recruitment is reliant on technology now and sort of e-commerce and e-technology? I mean, I guess back in the day, it would have been someone would have sent you a CV and in black and white on paper, wouldn't they? And you'd have considered that. So how important is LinkedIn, and how important are some of those other social media sites that people have now? How much of a picture can you paint about someone from their, what do you call it, perhaps their social media footprint?
Yeah, it is hugely important, especially LinkedIn, and as Stephen touched on, I did do headhunting, and LinkedIn was probably the main tool that I used to be able to headhunt people from other companies. It's hugely important. So if you have an interest in IT and you're good at it, and this may be a bit of a generalization, but I do have 2 children, 27 and 23, who are absolute whizzes on that type of stuff. So I sometimes can get stuck on that and will get some help, but we do find that the younger generation in the office are much quicker with that. But it's hugely important, and it makes it a lot quicker. I don't know if Caroline and Stephen would agree with that. It has made the recruitment process a lot quicker and sometimes more streamlined.
Yeah, you agree with that, Caroline?
Yeah, I think it's about really having the right combination. So, we talked about it earlier where there's always going to be a need for that people element. And if you use tech in the right way, e.g. speed things up, get your message out there, be able to search for the right people, perfect. But you still need to have that personal element to it. So they work really well together.
Okay, I think this is probably the final question that we've got in now. If you have got one that you do want to ask, drop it in now. But the final question I've got on my board here, and as it builds on the question we answered a little bit earlier, is what's it like when you have a person, I assume this means a candidate, who you can't get a job for? So perhaps it's a candidate that you've got on your portfolio for a while. You don't find any suitable jobs for them, I'm guessing. How do you deal with that, Donna?
That can be hard, but I guess, and then that has happened, but you kind of have to start from the beginning and look at their CV and look at absolutely everything about that and everything about yourself, and make sure that you're answering and asking the right questions of them, sorry, I should say, and just kind of strip everything back and start from the beginning, rebuild their CV, rebuild what they're looking at, and refocus your search. But sometimes, especially if it's a very niche candidate and you might not have that niche client for them, doing referrals to other agencies as well. So, hands down, if you're looking for something in, I don't know, say for instance, in pharmaceuticals, Maine probably isn't your best bet because that's not something that we're strong in. I would go and try this agency, because the aim of the game is to get that person that job. So if it's one of your colleagues in another agency, then that's fantastic, but the aim of the game is to get them a job.
Yeah, I mean, Caroline, you obviously deal with more general recruitment across a range of industries. So I guess there must be a fair amount of coaching that you end up doing with your candidates. So do you find that you have to try and find that balance between, giving your time to support them quite holistically around their employment skills? And then how do you deal with someone who you've had on your books for a while and you just can't get them that breakthrough?
Well, pretty much, what Donna was saying, if you've done all of those things and you're still really not going to be able to find them something, it is more a case of saying, look, let's just think about, is this the right way, to approach all of this? Let me think about friends, colleagues, people in my network that I could introduce you to, because there will come a point where perhaps you can't help everybody. And I think as long as you're upfront and honest about that, then there's only so much that you can do. So always trying to just sort of give advice and sort of help make that a little bit easier for them. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It really is, because you do want to help everyone find the right role, and we're very candidate driven. Whatever is best for our candidates is what we want to do. But sometimes you've just got to be able to say, you know what, try this or try that with someone else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just always keep in touch.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just end on this point, because it would be quite a fun conversation to finish with. Although we're primarily talking about helping people who today who are interested in careers in recruitment. Of course, a lot of the people that will be watching this will be going for their first jobs and will probably really appreciate some tips from you as recruitment consultants about how they should be handling themselves when they go to interviews. So have you got any, and we'll flip this, we'll make sure it ends on a positive as well, but firstly, what's the worst feedback you've ever received about a candidate that you've sent there? So perhaps behaviours of someone in an interview that people should be avoiding. And then secondly, generally, what are the really positive feedback that you receive about candidates that you think would be good things for young people who are perhaps about to go for their first interviews to be aware of? But let's start with perhaps the more negative ones, and then we'll flip it on a positive. So Stephen, I'm going to ask you first of all.
Right, so I think in interviews you get a lot of nervous energy. I've been involved in some assessment centre type interview scenarios, and a lot of entry-level roles, even they have assessment centres where you're surrounded by 5, 6 other candidates all vying for maybe 1 or 2 jobs. I've seen scenarios where people have maybe been rude about someone or laughed inappropriately. So general good manners, I think, and ensuring that you're dressed appropriately. There's nothing worse than seeing 5 smartly dressed people in reception and 1 person sat in trainers and jeans. Often, and there's a fear generally across in any scenario, we don't want to be overdressed. Unless you're going in a sort of a dinner suit to an interview, you can't really be overdressed. Always wear a shirt, always wear trousers, look smart, look like you're making the effort. It goes a long way to show to the interviewer and the hiring manager, if you are dressed smartly, that you're keen and you're very much interested in the role.
Okay, thank you. So it says Stephen in his hoodie. I'll just point out there.
Hey, we're working from home. I'm trying to be down with the kids.
You never know who's watching. Donna, what about from you? Any really amusing stories? Any perhaps really good feedback that you could share?
It was actually a headhunt. It was for a very senior role, and this particular person sat through the interview, which was a panel of 3 people, for an hour and 10 minutes, chewing gum the whole way through really loudly. Don't chew gum, folks, at an interview, not good. Prep for an interview, research the company that you're going to be interviewing with. Have a look at their values. So have a look at their website, see if there's any values that you can weave into your answers, and also have some questions. So most interviews will say at the end, do you have any questions for us? Yeah, I do, because you know what? You're also interviewing them. It's a 2-way thing. It's got to work for both. So yeah, do all of that and take a few deep breaths, and it's a conversation. Try and be friendly and as informal, but staying formal and answering the questions.
Yeah, good. And then Caroline, any tips from you and any anecdotes from you that you could share with us?
Yes, well, a couple of things here. So don't take your mum on your interview. We've had people where they've actually taken their family and they've sat in reception and we didn't even know. So yeah, leave them at home. And then we did have someone who rang us and their car had broken down. So we literally sent out one of the team. They picked them up, got them to the interview on time. Then we could sort the car out, but we were so keen, we knew they were right for the job, we wanted them to have every opportunity, so be prepared. But I think as well, when you're actually at the interview, know your CV. We still use them. The interviewer will ask you things about your CV, examples of things on your CV. Make sure you've read it properly and you've thought through what examples you can give.
Yeah,
good luck.
Don't say that you can speak a language if you can't, because I know people who have said they could speak a certain language, someone in the interview could, and they said something to them and they didn't have a clue.
Yeah,
I forgot to give my advice, sorry. in terms of, and Caroline and Donna touched on all the really important ones there, vast majority of interviews now will involve some form of competency-based question, and the amount of people that fall down at interview because they don't formulate their answers to a competency-based question correctly, even though they might have the right skill sets, if they don't get across, articulate themselves as they should do as part of an interview, they can just naturally lose out based on competency-based questions, and they're often scored. So do some research on competency-based questions, how to best answer them. It's not about we, it's about you and how you completed a task, how you added value. That's easily the best piece of advice I think I can give.
Yeah, thank you. Some great advice there from all three of our panelists. I'm sure that will help you, those of you watching who will be going for your first jobs and first interviews very shortly, perhaps. Let's just close with perhaps a useful website for you to be aware of. So for those of you considering a career in recruitment, Caroline, will you just explain what this website is and how it might be useful?
Sure, yes. So the REC, Recruitment and Employment Confederation, are the industry body really for recruitment. So there's all sorts of interesting webinars, tips, help, advice that we use quite regularly. And it has got a whole section that talks about qualifications. I think Donna mentioned some of them, but they do apprenticeships. There's information about apprenticeships as well on there. So head for maybe the qualifications bit as a starting point, and then you can take it from there really.
Okay, thank you. So that website may well be something that you want to have a look at subsequently. And then final thing really to share with you is that, as we mentioned, this video will be recorded and it will be available via our YouTube channel on HOP. So do have a look at that one. So there's a QR code on there. If you were to take a picture of that QR code, that will take you to our page on the HOP website where all of the previous webinars we've recorded are. So we've been recording these webinars since last May. So there's been one a week since then during school term time. So you may well find that there are other videos in the same format as this covering different careers that you're interested in as well. So please do go and have a look at that page on the HOP website, and so do go and have an explore on HOP as well, because you may well find that there's lots of really good information there that will help you to make your next choices that you are going to make. So finally, let me just thank firstly all of those of you in the live audience who have watched this today and have submitted some really interesting questions and engaged really well with our panelists today. And then finally, of course, let's say a huge thank you to our panel of Caroline, Donna and Stephen for giving up their time this afternoon to share their experiences and their knowledge with you. I'm so sorry to Stephen for attacking him for his attire this afternoon, but they've all presented themselves incredibly well.
I'll be honest, I'm day off. It's my birthday today, Gareth. So I got back at 20 past. Just and I totally forgot I was wearing a hoodie. To be honest, I've been looking at myself and I was like, very good point. I'm sat here in a hoodie and I hadn't even realised. So well, yeah,
we would have known we'd have brought a virtual birthday cake out for you as well. So many happy returns to you, Stephen.
Thank you.
And I'm sure everyone else will wish you a happy birthday as well. So thank you so much for our panelists today. You've been really informative, and I think you've been really inspirational as well. And I'm sure that everyone watching this one will have a very positive view on careers in recruitment. So thank you to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your evenings and very best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye everyone.